My name is Danny Fenton and I'm an aeromodeller and an engineer. Join me on a fascinating journey where I show you some of the techniques used in scale aeromodelling. Welcome back, modellers. What I'm going to show you now is I've drawn lines onto the underside of the fuselage on the wing fairings, because the wing fairings are not right. And I'm going to whack some filler on here. Now what I'm going to use is the stuff I showed you in the previous video, and it's microlite powder mixed with epoxy, and in this case I've used West Systems finishing resin. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pile it in here. I'm going to get it in there, and if I've got enough left I'll pile it on here as well. You see the purple line, that's where it needs to come out to, and this should be a nice curve, and it's not. So on we go with the splodge. Now this is going to need more than one coat, I'm sure of it. Now that was actually just one plunge of West Systems from each bottle. One plunge from the hardener and the resin. That was all. But by the time I'd added about 4 scoops of the filler powder, it's really created quite a lot of the stuff, which is great. Now if you use the David's Isopon type stuff, which is polyester based, it goes off really quickly, and this would have gone hard by now, and I'd have completely lost the window of opportunity to do this. So this stuff, because it takes longer to dry, you've got more time. But what you do have to be careful of is that you don't run into an endothermic reaction and the stuff starts to set before you're ready, simply because of the volume of resin you've got in the pot. This was one of the reasons why I was trying to get the stuff out and on, spread out quite quickly, so that it's a thinner layer, therefore it wouldn't quite have time to go and decide it's going to heat up and start setting itself through the endothermic reaction. I'm just trying to get this higher than the area I need so that we can sand it away. It does appear to be a lot, and it is a lot, but actually the weight is, as it was in the pot, was not as much as you'd think. It nearly is all powder. And that's pretty good. I'm actually quite pleased that so much went on in one hit like that. I don't know whether or not it's worked properly until we start to sand it and see how close we are. With a bit of luck. Won't be so bad. It's a little bit low through there, so what we'll do is we'll sand this and start getting the shape right. And if we need to add another batch, then we will. So there we go. We'll let that set, and then we'll set to sanding it. See if we can actually get a nice shape. It's already looking better. Actually, it's already flowing in a nicer curve, which is what I'm after. Right, more when that dries. So it was left overnight. It still feels a little, I don't know, it's a bit harder. It's just a little bit spongy, but we'll see how it goes. I'm going to use some 80 grit because I was advised that 80 grit cuts this stuff really well. So here we go. you get the idea. It's, there's a few low spots just here and there, so we'll fill those. Whether I'll still use this filler or whether I'll just switch to the P38, because the P38 dries in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and you can be sanding it in another 5 or 10 minutes. So this stuff is just taking too long to dry. I need to get some good 5-minute epoxy, and then we'll try again. And that might make things a bit quicker. Right, so I'll do the other side. See if we can get it to the same sort of stage, and then we'll mix up some more just to patch it up, and then we'll flip it over and we'll do the other side. So as you can see, the sanding went great. A bit dusty. So, but I got fed up with the epoxy-based filler. It just takes too long to set. So I used some of the white wood filler. It's like P38, but it's a wood type filler instead, but it's the same sort of thing. It's a polyester resin, so it dries really quickly. So this was put on, and within 15 minutes I was able to sand it. So the bottom is now as good as I'm going to get it. So you can see I've filled this in quite a lot, so I've now got some curves through here which are good. I've also spent quite a lot of time on the shape of that rear fillet there. Now, unfortunately, on the Jerry Bates model, the wing root is actually at the wrong angle and is too far away from the fuselage, according to the 3 views. So there's nothing I can do about that distance. That's it. So all I can do is try and camouflage it and hope no judges are actually watching this video. So what I've tried to do is make this radius as flat as I can, but it does straighten out towards the end here, and that's because that bit is actually not supposed to be there. This root, wing root, should be there where the curve stops. So I've got it right, but it will never be right. So that's one of the problems. But as you can see, I've taken the rear edge of it and rounded it off quite a lot, quite dramatically, and that's how it is on the full size. So there's still some more work to be done around here, but what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to glass this, and then I can do a lot more of the work on it on a hard surface, because at the moment I'm dealing with different densities of material. I'm trying to sand balsa, filler, and balsa that's got CA glue in it as well, and some plywood as well. So everything is all a different density, and it's not sanding so easily. So what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to aim to get this as good as I can and start with glassing. One of the things I've done on the top is I've started to fill in, this is done with a filler made by Red Devils called One Time, and it's really light and works very well, but it has to be put on really thin, otherwise it just never seems to dry. I'm still waiting for that bit there, which is quite thick because there was a bit of a gap, so that's quite thick, so I'm still waiting for that to dry. One of the other things I'm looking at, and in fact this might be an area that I need to finish sooner rather than later. What I've done is I've sorted out the fuselage inside underneath the cowl, so it's now nice and neat and ready for glass. But what I have got is a horrible join between the cowl and the top of the fuselage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my 1/4 inch wide or 6mm wide steel block. It's a permagrit block. It's a slotting tool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it up against the cowl edge, and then I'm going to run it all the way around here to create a slightly low slot, 1/4 inch wide. And then I'm going to take some 64th ply and I'm going to drop that in to give me a hard edge to the cowl, to the fuselage joint, so that it's going to be a little bit more robust. Now we just need to trim that, sand it, get it smooth, and we're away. What I'm going to show you now is an interesting little trick. I've shown it before and it's been in other videos, but I know people don't necessarily watch all the videos, they just watch 1 or 2. So I'll go over it again so you can see how it's done. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a very hard edge and sharp thin edge on the trailing edge of the fin. And the way I'm going to do it, clean that, the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to use this angled piece of plywood and balsa with a bit of sandpaper on it. Again, it's 120 grit paper. And what you do is this plywood piece acts as an end stop, and you hold it against the trailing edge. And then what it'll do, it will sand a channel just the depth, the thickness of the sandpaper and the width of the piece that you've cut. You'll see when I start sanding what the idea is. And there, hopefully you can see that there's now a ridge. And what I've done is I've routed out a section, just the thickness of the sandpaper. Now what we do is we take some 64th inch plywood. You take a strip of it exactly that wide and you drop it into that channel. And that gives you a really solid and sharp rear edge. But the idea is to give you a hard ding-proof edge that will be always nice and true and straight and shouldn't warp. Anyway, let's go and cut some ply that width. So here's our piece of ply. If we drop it into that, up against that groove, you can see that it actually sits flush. So 64th ply is about the thickness of the sandpaper. And the way I attach this is quite simple really. I just hold it still in position and then I run a little tiny bit of CA into the joint and then hold it closed while it sets. Not hard, I don't clamp it tight, just gently till it flashes. Now with CA you've got to remember it doesn't flash immediately when one of the surfaces is plywood. It takes a little bit longer. So you just have to hold it for a little bit longer. Try not to glue your fingers to it. And just slowly sneak up on it. There's no rush. What you sometimes have to do is just push the ply into the channel to make sure it hasn't just crept away from a little bit, which it has just there. Also, don't be tempted to put a bit at each end and then the middle, because what you need to do is actually work your way along, and if it's going to push it and make it longer as you squeeze it down, then you want somewhere for that extra length to disappear to. So start from one end, sort of squeegee it to the other. Just to finish off the exercise, all we do is very lightly sand the edge. And there, completely invisible to the finger, you can't feel the ridge at all, but you have this lovely sharp trailing edge. There we go, so very useful little trick that. What I've done is I've scaled my 3-view to quarter scale so it's the right size, and I can drag bits of the drawing within Adobe Illustrator, so that the section I want printing is over the area of paper that it will print, and it's an A3 sheet. So what I did was I drug the section underneath the tailplane, the tail wheel sort of area and the tail cone bit, to get an idea of where things, you know, are supposed to go and the placement and things like that. And as we've already said, this is the Jerry Bates design, so I'm having to try and modify things as I go along to make them work. We can see here that the tail light should actually be a little bit flatter than that. So whether I do another one and sort of sand that green plug to more of a flatter section, we'll have to see, but I could do. But the rest of it looks pretty good. And the reason I've done this was I wanted to find out exactly where this hole here is meant to be for the tail wheel. And you can see from this that actually the tail wheel is too far forward. It's into the bulkhead. There's a bulkhead here, and that's what the tail wheel is mounted on. So this arm is actually about ½ an inch further back. And when you look at it overall and you think, oh, hang on, so that's in the right place, the tail cone's in the right place, the rear edge of the elevator is in the right place, and the elevator's in the right place. But hang on, that line isn't. So when you line the elevator up, the trailing edge of the elevator, the leading edge of the elevator is a good 10 mil further forward. However, the leading edge of the tailplane is correct. So my 3-view, the elevator is actually 10 millimeters deeper chord than Jerry's. Now you can have a bun fight as to which one's correct, but I trust Ollie Russell's drawing. So I think the problem is that the drawing that Jerry has drawn to is not as accurate as Ollie Russell's drawing. So what do I do to correct this? I think what I need to do is probably follow the elevator split line for positioning, and that would mean the tail cone is a little bit too far aft by about 6 mil, 10 mil, but it will mean that I can put the tail wheel cutout actually in this glass fibre section, which was the whole point of doing it. So I'm going to move it back to there, and that is the area that I need to cut out to allow the tail wheel to come through. Interesting exercise, because now you can see the difference between one drawing and another. So what you must do with scale modelling, and obviously I haven't done it with this one because the Jerry Bates one I already had the parts cut, so I thought, well, I'll build it anyway because it's quarter scale. It's going to give me a good test of wing incidences, tailplane incidence, thrust lines, and whether the power of the motor was going to be enough, my cell counts, all this sort of stuff, and see what weight we came out. So it's a useful exercise. But as an accurate scale model, what I need to do is to draw my own plan based on the Ollie Russell drawing, and then my 3-view will match my model. And so far, whenever I've checked the 3-view against photographs, it's been accurate to photographs as well. So that's what you should do. That's not what we've done here. So what we're doing is we're trying to modify this Jerry Bates design to fit this 3-view. And the reason I'm doing this and not just trying to make it fit the Jerry Bates 3-view, which I could do, is because the pictures actually match this 3-view. The pictures don't match Jerry's 3-view. And at the end of the day, in scale competition, pictures trump drawings. Now you'll remember this area from way back in video number, whatever it was, very early on. And you'll remember we made this tail wheel assembly. So it's made out of bits of piano wire and brass, and there's a sort of a sprung load linkage in there to give it some shock absorbing. So it goes in there, so the spring loading goes down to that shock absorber down there, and it goes in there. So that gives us an idea of where the tail wheel is going to end up. So I just wanted to mark on here where the centre line of the tail wheel is. And it's there. So let's have a look at that tail section again and put it on and see if we can see where these lines are. And we can't see the marks. Oh, I can see one of them there. Okay, one there and one there. So that's the one we have to come back as far as, absolutely must, and that's where the tail wheel is, or the centre line of the tail wheel. So looking at that, I think this line should come forward a little bit, just a bit, because it only has to clear that bit. So maybe to there. And the centre line of the tail wheel on this one is here, whereas on mine it's there. So as I said, there's about a 10mm difference between the two. Don't tell the judges. Well, what we're going to do just briefly is I'm just going to cover the side of the fin in glass cloth. I'm using 25g cloth for the fin, and probably for the tail section I'll use 25g cloth. I might use 25g for all of it. And all I'm going to do is put some 25g cloth on there with some resin. I'll put peel ply on here, but I'm also then going to do the side of the strake, or the fin, or the, whatever you want to call it, dorsal, down the fuselage as well. I'll do one side of that while I'm in here. So I've got peel ply ready for this bit, this dorsal fin bit. I've got some lengths of 25g cloth, but I'm not going to use peel ply on those. I'm not going to worry about it.
It's a great away from home Roma this season, so really important to get 3 points today ahead of that really Europe straw specialists. Nobody in any of the top 5 European leagues have drawn as many games. Right onto the head of the big defender. And his stooping header gives Roma a very welcome lead here. Certainly there with him, but Spinazzola gets away and wins a corner. We've had 2 set pieces so far, the home side, and chances have accrued from both of them.
Okay, there we go. Now that's not gone on very well, and I think it's because I've been using a brush. As you all know, I tend to use the Jenny brush, which is a foam brush, and it's much nicer to use than a paintbrush. A paintbrush grabs the fibres and pulls them, as you can probably have seen. Not very satisfying. Anyway, we'll let that go off, and we'll peel the peel ply off tomorrow and sand the edges just to clean them all up. So it's the next day. And the glass is nice and solid. So I'm going to peel it off. As you can see, I got carried away and I did add another section of glass just to use up the rest of the resin. It didn't do the whole side, but it did do some more of the, it just finished off the resin. So I'm going to try and take the peel ply off the fin first. Find a suitable corner. And there we go. Now the peel ply has done 2 things. It's kept the glass onto the surface of the wood, which is what we want, and it's also soaked up all the excess resin that you don't need. So when we were putting the glass on and you saw that I didn't really worry about how much resin I put on, that's because I didn't worry about it. This will take most of it out, and as long as when you put it on, you can see on this piece that it wets out, then you know that you had enough resin in the glass to stick it down, and this has sucked out the rest of it. So we're just trying to take this piece off now. And there we go, that's how easy that comes off. Now if it's pure polyester, that is how easy it comes off. If it's not pure, it may stick forever. So as you can see, I've done the other side of the fuselage and I've just got the peel ply to remove. This is the following day. You can see it leaves a lovely finish. It's a sort of a texture that is similar to when you've just used one of the iron-on text type films, Solar Tex or Oratex or something like that. The peel ply is really quite soaked. That means there was quite a lot of resin on there, and it's lifted it all the excesses in the peel ply, which is good. As you can see, it comes off really easily. It's not such a big problem. And because the peel ply won't conform to compound curves, you have to put it on in patches like this, and where there's an overlap, it doesn't matter. There was an overlap here, it's a very slight ridge, but it's not really very much. What you do need to do is make sure you always tear with the material fairly flat, because it can lift the edge of the glass. It does grip, but it's not that much. And there we have it, a nice finish that just needs a little bit of tickling and a little bit of sanding, and away we go. There's a little tiny ridge just there that I can feel with my finger, so there will be a few little areas that need to be addressed. You can see we're making good progress. The underside of the wings are also now done, and the peel ply is dry, so we can take that off. So all I have to do now is clean up the edges, and I'm probably going to have to use a scalpel, a very sharp scalpel blade, to get in and trim the edge of that, and then the tape will lift, and hopefully it will have protected the fabric work from any resin getting on it. All that we have left to do now is the top surfaces of the wings and the very belly of the fuselage, and then we can give it a little bit of a sand down. So that brings us to the end of another video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please click like and subscribe. And on the next video, hopefully we'll be putting some primer on.